this here. So this cup, let's say that it represents icky bad stuff in our life, in your dog's life. The orange stuff, the orange highlighter, can you see that? Let's say that your dog is over-aroused, really easily over-aroused, chases bikes, cars, I don't know, lunges at dogs, doesn't want people in the house, has a greeting disorder, like jumps all over people, pulls you to go say hi. Oh, he just wants to say hi, but he's, like murdering your arm on the way to do that. All of that, every time one of those incidents happens, this orange stuff here, that is cortisol and adrenaline. All the stress hormones that flood your body and flood your dog's body. And it happens every day. Every time you put your dog and yourself into the situation that causes that stress to keep building up, this is what happens. And then blah, 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 there it goes. It bubbles over and your dog explodes or you explode. And how long do you think it takes adrenaline and cortisol, let's say cortisol, because it's the tough one. How long do you think it takes cortisol to completely flush out of a system, out of your system or your dog's system? Take a guess. How long do you think? And some of you may know this because I know some of you are well educated. So how long do you think? Give me a guess. How long do you think that it takes for that to be eliminated from the body, from your body, your dog's body? And so while waiting for your answers, I'm going to put this out there to you. You and your dog need to have a stress reset. And have you ever had a job? Have you ever worked at a job, or do you know someone? And this is a common issue, right? Have you ever worked at a job where you were stressed out every stinking day? You had the worst job ever, or your boss was just hideous and it was terrible, and you didn't, maybe your coworkers were just awful, whatever. Have you ever had that? Or do you know someone that has? And every day was stressful, and every day, and as the days and weeks and months went by, what happened to you? What happened to your friend? If it's not you, but it's your friend, what happened to their bodies when they lived like that every day for their job, right? You know what happens, right? It's you get tired and exhausted and cranky, and you stop enjoying life. And it doesn't matter if you come home and someone loves on you. It doesn't matter if you know that your dog and your significant other or your children love you to pieces. It doesn't matter if you go have a massage or have a soaking tub or have a nice cup of soothing tea every night when you come home. I mean, it helps, of course, right? It helps to have all that. It helps to have a support system, a big time. And it helps to have that cup of tea. It helps to take that soothing bath. It helps to have that massage, you know what I mean? Because that can help, keep that, instead of having it bubble over, it can maybe keep it down to here, you know what I mean? But when you go back on Monday morning or tomorrow morning, it's just going to start all over again, right? And it's just going to, in your cup is just going to start filling up again. Does that make sense? And so I'm trying to put some of these things into metaphors that you'll understand, because our dogs are socially intelligent. They are as socially intelligent as humans, right? They're no different. And so they experience very similar things to us. And so let's see, how long do you think? Let's see, we've got 72 hours, 6 days, 2 to 3 days, a week or more, 3 days. Great. And none of you are wrong. You're all right. But here's the thing. There's studies to show that it takes at least 36 hours, and it can take as long as 8 weeks. 8 weeks. Okay. And so you're going to fight me. I know you're going to fight me because you're already fighting me in the group, and some of you have only met me like a couple days ago online, right? And I know, because I know this and I understand why. And you're going to fight me on why you can't turn off the faucet that keeps filling up your stress bucket and your dog's stress bucket. I know that you're going to tell me all the reasons why you can't do that. And the reason you're going to tell me that is because of the way our brains work. Because our brains want to keep us in the comfort zone. Our brains insist on us staying in the comfort zone, even if the comfort zone is the most uncomfortable, unpleasant place ever. Because our brains take into account that if this is the life that you present to me, and these are your habits, then our habits must be preserved at all costs, because it wouldn't be a habit if it wasn't right. You know what I mean? And so instead of having a cup like this, that we keep that stress low, we keep our dogs an hour, cortisol and adrenaline relatively low, so that we can stay happy. And maybe it goes up and it goes back down. It goes up and it goes back down. We end up, this is where we are. We're living over here. We're living here. And we don't want to do that, right? Why do we want to live that way? Especially when we know, and especially when we know that there are alternatives. Okay. So Bettina is with us today. She's one of our BPs, and she's one of our moderators and ambassadors that has been working her butt off to help you guys out. And I want to read something, Bettina. I don't think you'll mind. I know that you've already been posting things, but I want to read to you something that she wrote recently in our Brilliant Partners Academy group. She says, she was sharing a celebration. When we adopted Murphy, and 6 weeks later, he started OCD behavior, which then turned into resource guarding. Shortly after, Bear started to react to fast-moving cars and bikes. And before we knew it, we had 2 dogs fighting all the time. So Murphy is deaf, and he had some emotional behavioral issues from his past, and it was pretty bad, right? I mean, Bettina can give you some details, but he was inconsolable and unreachable, to the point he was ripping down her walls and stuff in frantic. He was like Helen Keller before Anne Sullivan, and she had a breakthrough, right? And so Bettina already had 2 other dogs when her and her husband adopted Murphy. So now Murphy is affecting Bear, and Bear's starting to react, right? And then all that over-arousal and all of this affected Murphy and Bear both, and they started fighting because they were just both highly, their cup was overflowing. And so Bettina writes, I had to keep them separate all the time. I couldn't go for walks. Driving them to quiet places didn't even work anymore. I felt trapped, and I was ready to rehome Murphy to get our lives back. we had been in training in private sessions, in reactive dog classes. And in March of 2018, I saw a video of Kathy's BPA. And after watching it, I said to myself, I have tried everything and I've got nothing to lose. Today, 10 months later, so she wrote this a couple months ago. Today, 10 months later, I can take Bear and Mary in the car out for walks. All three can be back in the house together with supervision. I no longer try to fix Murphy. We have such a great partnership. He turned into a real snuggle bug, and we're going to take it day by day so he can live his life to the fullest. It's been a great learning experience for all of us. And BPA is such a great support group. I am forever grateful. And so in 10 months, right? So Bettina, she took my advice to heart, and she stopped this. She stopped all of this. She figured out ways to stop filling the cups of her dogs and herself, right? And she brought him down and brought him down and brought him down. And in 10 short months, they have a completely different life. And everyone's, is it perfect? No. But no, I don't know whose life is perfect. But they're happy, they're thriving. And it took some creativity on Bettina's part and Bettina and her husband's part to take a step back and say, this isn't working. And all this stress producing, these activities aren't working for us. Okay. And I wanted to share, let me see if I could find this. Oh, here it is. Because here's another one. This is from Sally, who adopted 3 Romanian street dogs. Okay, now you know what that's going to be like, right? So she has 3, and I'm just going to write, she wrote this to us, and she writes, my problem child, Maxie, was the reason I signed up. She displayed many of the typical rescue dog behaviors, lunging and screaming at other dogs, barking in the house at sounds, especially at night, resource guarding, leash pulling. And through Kathy's program, I stopped trying to fix her, and we've gone on to develop a strong partnership based on trust and understanding. She knows I listen to her now, and I no longer feel the pressure to walk her every day and expose her to her fears. In turn, she's become happier, less anxious. She seeks me out for affection, something she never would have done a few months back. Our mindset has completely changed toward one another, and she isn't a problem child any longer. Late last year, I adopted a very scared young pup that had got to 6 months of age without any human contact. Hear that. A puppy that was 6 months of age without any human contact. Myla. Since then, Myla has been brought up living the Brilliant Partners lifestyle. I have never trained her. We just live the Brilliant Partners way. And wow, she's amazing. She doesn't know what sit means, but she chooses to walk next to me on and off a leash. Her recall is phenomenal, and she's an extremely happy and well-balanced pup. And finally, my long-term streetie, Stanley, who now lives by the 95% rule, for a dog I never thought I'd be able to let off leash, has chosen to be responsible, and I trust him 100% to always stay near me. My dogs are far more bonded with me and with each other, and I'm convinced this wouldn't have been possible without this program of heartfelt understanding of your dogs. Now, the reason I'm sharing these stories, I just wanted to share those 2 stories tonight. The reason I'm sharing them is because I want you to know that this works. This is just a couple. I mean, there's so many, right? And it works like for Sally and Bettina. The reason it worked so fast for them, and like Dee, I shared Dee and Phelan's little highlight reel video the other day, yesterday, I think that was. The reason that they had such a phenomenal turnaround so quickly is because the humans committed themselves to being brilliant partners, committed themselves to understanding, to communicating, to not trying to fix their dog, to not trying to any of the stuff that we normally do, and to learn how to live. So let's answer a couple questions, and let's see if we can't now. I wanted to give you this first so that you can have some background for how I'm going to answer these questions, okay? Because I showed you the I had a card, but yesterday I showed you the trust accelerator quadrant. It starts with listening, right? Listening is quadrant number 1, listening to yourself, listening to your dog. And then quadrant number 2 was, safety and thriving and trying to find ways to live. Whoops, I'm doing it backwards. To live over here, right? To live with the cup staying low. Okay. So does that make sense? So I want you to know why I'm going to answer the way I'm going to answer. The questions were around the topic of how do I know what my dog is experiencing? Or my dog seems happy. My dog is, jumping and wagging and eager to greet people or other dogs. And my dog seems really happy. Or my dog, so along those veins. But the undercurrent or the thread that runs between those types of questions that I saw was that I'm not sure about my dog's behavior, and I'm not sure how to proceed, especially when considering, the homework assignment of, the 3 to 5 things that keep you and your dog safe, calm, and happy. And so there's a couple of pieces to this that I think is good for everybody. And that's why I pulled out this type of a question to answer tonight. So one piece of this, one segment that I want to talk about is that oftentimes our dogs they appear to be happy and filled with joy and excited, in a good way, when they're actually not. Okay. And that was, I think Layla was the only one that went kind of the opposite way. But the other ones were my dog seems, happy and excited. And then he, all of a sudden, or he or she, lunges, barks, tries to nip, whatever. Right. So, but he seems happy. So a lot of times our dogs seem to be excited and happy, but they're actually frantic. They're like desperately trying to find the right combination to please us and to please make the situation good. And that happens a lot with dogs that are trained quite a bit, because we inadvertently teach them that we have a transactional type of relationship. And so what I mean by that is, that they're working for payment, they're working for treats or play or something that they want, right? And so when we have, without having a partnership foundation, if that's all we have, if that's the primary relationship that we have is one of transaction, then what our dogs will do, the way they behave is that they're sort of over-aroused and overexcited, and they're trying hard to find the magic thing that will get them either attention or what they want, or to please us or to please whoever. And so we want to be careful about that, about the interpretation of that. I mean, sometimes dogs are just happy and excited, right? Of course. But sometimes they're not. And so I think the listening piece is what will help. So in those cases, where the dogs are acting very over aroused or very excited, but not in an aggressive kind of a reactive way, but just, they're just over aroused and overexcited. I think we want to really listen, and we want to put that listening into the context of the big picture. Because if we have taught our dogs through just through not understanding that this was a potential possibility, that our main engagement and our main interaction, our main relationship, if you will, is through transaction, then they're going to be seeking transactions all the time, right? That's because they don't have anything else to go by. And so when you guys post and I hear or read about dogs that they don't settle very well, like there was a bunch of posts, my dog's like, he's either like crazy or he's sleeping, she's either like busy or she's sleeping. And so that tells me that's a very clear sign that if that's your dog, if your dog is somewhat like that I would advise you to look very carefully at the ratio of transaction versus what I call just a heart connection, a real relationship, a real deep heart connection that does not need to have any transactions at all, right? Just like with humans, right? I mean, when we love someone or someone's our good friend, we don't need to do anything or have anything, right? We just enjoy being together, anywhere, anytime, any place. It doesn't matter. And so our dogs need that too. And so that's one of the biggest things that is lacking that I have seen over the years. And one of the biggest misunderstandings that folks have, including, positive dog trainers, is that we misunderstand that. And a lot of times that's in the dog sport world, that's interpreted as drive. It's misinterpreted as drive. Oh, my dog has a lot of drive. My dog's eager. And I see that completely different. I see that as that dog is desperate for a real connection. And so they don't know how else to get it. They don't know how else to have a real connection other than offer transactions. So I hope that makes sense. And then on the other, with Lila's case, sorry, I'm not sure how to say your name. In the case of your dog, if your dog feels safe in that show environment and your dog shows well and your dog is happy and winning, placing, whatever, and you have no difficulty staying connected with your dog is attentive and responsive in and around the showgrounds and in and around the rings. If your dog is not checking out, if you can ask your dog to do something, if your dog is looking to you for, are we going to do something? Are we just hanging out? You know what I mean? So if your dog is relaxed and yet attentive and responsive, then that's when, and if you listen for that, then you're going to know, you're going to have your answer, because the dog that is shut down is not attentive and responsive. A dog that is shut down is shut down. They're not attentive and responsive. They may be compliant. They may comply with what you're asking them to do with you, with a little encouragement from you. But there's a complete, you can tell, it's very clear that they're complying with your request, but it's not because it's what they want to do. They're not happy to do it. You know what I mean? And so so when we listen for whether or not a dog is shut down, that could be shut down from fear, like they're afraid or anxious about the environment, the surroundings, about what we're asking of them, about something that's going on in the environment that they're in that maybe is not directly about you and your dog, but let's say someone is yelling or there's some loud noises. If your dog is sensitive to sounds, and your dog shuts down, then your dog is not going to be attentive and responsive in that relaxed, happy sort of way. Does that make sense, you guys? And so those are kind of two different ends of the spectrum that I thought I'd bring in to help you understand more about how to listen and how, and to help you define, well, when does my dog feel safe and happy, right? Just like you. If you listen to yourself and you listen to when you feel safe and happy, I promise you that if your dog is not feeling safe and happy, you're not going to be feeling safe and happy either, right? So if there's any doubt, if you're like, oh, I just can't tell, I'm not experienced enough, right? How do you feel? How do you feel in that circumstance? If you feel light and happy and relaxed, then your dog probably does too, right? Because you and your dog are attuned to one another. Your dog, is feeling your emotions and oftentimes either mirroring your emotions or responding to your emotions, right? And so you can check in with yourself. And that's one of the reasons that we need to pay a lot of attention to how we feel as well, because we cannot not only does our cup get overflowing, but we cannot not affect our dog. We can't hide how we feel from our dog. And if we're not feeling safe and happy and relaxed, our dog's not either. Which leads me to the third bucket in this. How do I know? Or let's say this assessment of how your dog is feeling. And that is all about this idea that a relaxed dog equals inactive, or a relaxed human equals inactivity. No, relaxation and happiness and calmness means that you feel good and you're enjoying the circumstance, the environment, that you're not feeling stressed, you're not having, adrenaline and cortisol surges, that you feel. So you could be very active. You could be playing and running. You could be doing agility. You could be going for a hike. You could be playing Frisbee in the backyard. You could be doing nose work. Your dog could be on a scent trail that you've laid and be relaxed. Okay, so relaxation does not equal inactivity. Okay, that's two completely different things. And I think the last thing I want to say about this whole piece, and I know you may have some follow-up questions, is that generally speaking, the maximum recommended amount of high arousal activity, right? So high arousal, and that's different for every dog. So some dogs may be highly aroused playing Frisbee. Some dogs may be highly aroused doing trick training. Some dogs may be highly aroused going for a walk. Some, you know what I mean? And so it's very individual, but 10 to 15% max of your dog's daily routine should be high arousal. No more than 15% of your dog's waking hours should be engaged in high arousal activities. And so take a look at that. You know, we dive deeper into this, a lot of this stuff in the Brilliant Partners Academy, but this should give you a lot to go on. And so if you know that your dog is engaged in high arousal activities more than about 15% of the time, you need to cut that back, right? You need to look for low and moderately arousal activities for your dog and you to enjoy. And so 50% of the time should just be low or no arousal, right? So hanging out, napping, getting massaged, whatever, you know what I mean? You know, laying at your feet while you're reading, that's low arousal or no arousal. Okay. So 50, no to low arousal, 15, high arousal, and the rest is moderate arousal. Okay. So that should give you guys a lot to go on.